Hello and welcome.
And we're back on the podcast show, The Church of Mark. And we are so excited to have Billy Merasty today in our home studio and podcast studio. Welcome to the show, Billy.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite, Mark.
It's been a while since we've seen you, I think. I know the pandemic's been going on, of course, so everyone's been stuck in their quarantine. I just want to make sure we're recording, and we are. So during the pandemic, you were working on your craft, or you were taking a break, or you were still shooting, films and TV. What were you working on?
I've worked a bit, but I did a lot of reading and doing a bit of research in my downtime. But I did a bit of work, and I'm actually quite surprised that the movie business, the movie industry, is still operating.
Right.
And there's a lot of production happening in the city and in the neighboring towns surrounding Toronto, like Hamilton, Sudbury, and North Bay. The business is still full on. I'm actually quite surprised that it was still active all the way through the pandemic.
Right.
So I worked a bit, but not as much as I had wanted to.
Sure.
And but I did audition for a lot of wonderful projects.
Oh, great.
So that part was exciting.
Excellent. And are any of the productions must be taking precautions for COVID, like testing, or to make sure the crew is vaccinated, or?
They're really strict with the COVID protocols.
Okay.
Because the amount of people that are involved in the industry, and also the demands from Health Canada to follow protocol. So one of the places that I was hired was to do a guest role on Digstown.
Okay,
for CBC.
Right.
So I got flown down to Halifax. And even the trip there was unnerving because there were no tests at all at the airport, Toronto Airport, nor in the Halifax Airport. And it was actually, it was a full plane. There was like some kind of sports team that filled the plane.
I see. Okay.
So I was really surprised that there were no testing. But once you're on set, and when you're leading towards a production, they basically make you follow COVID protocols strictly.
Okay.
And quarantining is one. I had to be quarantined for 14 days.
Okay, right.
In a hotel. And tested prior, as well as being tested again at the end of the 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then once all that was cleared, then we had more tests in and out. As we went in and out the studio, we had to be tested.
I see, okay.
Nasal swab and, and all that.
That must have been pleasant, all those tests.
First few times weren't, and then they started hurting.
Okay,
I thought they were pushing too far back. I thought they were hitting my brain. But I understand, though, those tests.
Yes, of course.
Because the amount of people that are involved in any production,
that's right.
You just can't be too careful. So I totally understand that, and I just follow through what I need to follow through.
Right, and you want to keep people safe on set, and it's all about that, right?
But it was interesting. I was so I came out of my 14-day quarantine in Halifax, and then the province shut down. So I had to wait another extra week, right? So I had to wait 3 weeks before I finally did my 1 day's work.
Your 1 day's work? Wow. So you're there for 3 weeks for 1 day
for
of work.
1 day's work,
Right.
It was quite lucrative.
Okay. Great.
But otherwise, the new season has started. The new season of Digstown has started, so I'm looking forward to that.
And
my episode.
Right, and that'll be, do you know when it'll be aired?
No, they don't tell you when it's going to air.
Right.
But I played old Chief Thomas, who is dying from liver cancer.
Okay, right.
And I don't want to say any more about it.
Sure,
I think.
We won't give it away. That's right, okay.
But it was great. And I got to work with Crystal Lightning.
Okay, right.
Our newest superstar.
Yes, absolutely.
I played her father.
Okay.
She did several episodes in Digstown, so it was nice. And it was I also happened to be the father an ex-father-in-law of Brandon Oak's character,
Okay.
the native lawyer in Dickstown.
Right. Okay.
So it was great to work with both of them. Crystal first time, and Brandon worked with previously. So it was good company.
Great. And do you find yourself, what kind of roles are you, I guess, looking for? Or what kind of roles are you getting? Is it now the fatherly figure, or sort of the authoritative figure, or what kind of, what's being thrown at you these days?
Well, certainly all the male roles, and they're pretty straight. So, and yes, I'm heading towards the older characters, grandfather roles or the father roles.
Right.
But there's a lot more native actors out there.
Yes.
That are getting a lot of work.
Yes,
that I've auditioned for. So, the work that I'm getting is work that is actually offered to me.
Right.
Without any auditions.
Right.
So I haven't actually won any auditions that I've gone to in the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
The work that I've gotten has been just offered to me, which is fabulous.
And that's
I hope that
the best way,
happens
right?
more.
You don't have to
yes, it
audition.
Is the best
There's
way.
no,
when people trust you, when they trust you, when they know that you can do the work without having to audition, it is a great form of showing trust.
Right.
Yes, I think we all prefer that, because the auditioning process is quite, nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yes.
And when you get an audition call, they basically sometimes they give you tons of pages, and you have to be ready tomorrow.
Right.
So it's the whole notion of auditioning is sometimes you're ready and sometimes you're not. Sometimes the character fits you. Sometimes you have to work hard to fit the character, and sometimes it's a total miss.
Right.
And you just go. You just go and meet every audition as best you can.
Right.
But we used to have live auditions. They're rare now.
What's that?
Where you audition in front of a director, in front of a producer,
in front of the I see. Right.
Portraying the character that they want you to play. Now it's all through this.
Okay, it's like
the TV
Zoom
auditioning,
or Skype, or
it's auditioning by through camera.
Through camera, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
What they call self tapes.
Is that because of COVID, or
it's
this was
because
already
of COVID?
Happened? Oh, okay,
it was basically steering in that direction, but COVID really sped it faster.
Okay.
And so now, when we get an audition call, it's for a self tape, and they tell you how many, when they want it done, or want the self tape done.
Right.
When they want it sent in.
Right.
And so I find sometimes I'm comfortable with that whole audition process.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm not. But it all depends on the character.
Right.
Some characters I feel are perfect for me. I may not get them, but I feel they're perfect for me. And some others are, sometimes I question, why did I even get this audition for this character,
Right.
So it changes from time to time. But I'm really glad that there are people there that have faith in me and just offer me work.
Well, that's great.
It's wonderful.
And as you mentioned, there's more, Indigenous actors now kind of getting into the field. Yeah. And you said
the competition
it's
is growing.
It's more competitive, you say.
Yes, more competitive, yes.
So what do you see for the future, I guess, of people that want to get into acting? That may be from Indigenous background, you would say go for it, or we're getting too saturated now.
No. We can't have enough native talent out there. We cannot have enough native talent out there. So if anyone is interested in going into acting, and I've been asked a lot, how do you become an actor? I want to be rich. I want to have get lots of girlfriends, or I want to be famous.
Sure.
That kind of thing. And to me, those are the wrong things to get into.
Exactly.
They're more on the selfish side. I fell in love with acting after going through Native Theatre School, but I was always interested in the arts.
Right.
And when I started learning English, I started reading books and discovering the world outside of my home reserve, which is Brochet, Manitoba.
Right. Because we talked about that, how it's close to Lynn Lake,
How it's close to Lynn Lake. Lynn Lake is the last stop.
That's right.
That's the train's last stop, and then we have to take a bush plane to fly into Brochet.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So the What were we talking about just before this?
Competition,
Yes, the competition.
actors. You're telling them they should do it.
So if I get asked, how do I become an actor? I basically say, if you're really interested in it, I would advise you really discover the craft, the art of acting. I'm not saying that I've perfected it or have accomplished that, but it's really a good idea to go towards discovering a craft. And part of discovering the craft is not only do you have to speak English. I mean, there are times when you speak other languages as well, native languages included.
Because your background's Cree.
Cree, yeah,
Okay, right.
and my first language.
And first language,
Yeah,
right.
I grew up in a Cree-speaking family, Cree-speaking community.
Right.
And I'm really glad that I did. And along the way, I had to learn English, and it was tough actually learning. But I fell in love with reading books.
Right.
You know? So that's how I discovered it. So my point with that is reading is very important because as actors, we have to read a script. And the other thing that's very important is to understand humanity. Because we're expected to portray human beings.
Right.
And the more you understand how human beings behave and why they behave the way they do, the better for the characters that you portray.
Right.
You know? And you have to understand how a character is written down. And they don't tell you how to interpret it. It's basically up to you to do the best interpretation that you can give it.
So there's not like the director or the playwright doesn't give you a psychological profile on the character. You kind of
have to build it yourself.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
through
right,
the understanding of your craft.
Right.
Through understanding humanity, the human behavior. And so that's what I would recommend people who want to get into acting is don't do it for the money. Yes, it's lucrative. But really, don't do it for the money.
Right.
Don't do it to be famous.
Right.
Don't do it to be popular, you know. But really discover the craft and fall in love with it, the whole process. And it demands a lot of you.
Right.
That in a matter of seconds to put yourself out there.
Right. And this is something that you always had your sights on, like even early as a child, or you fell into acting when you started doing it?
Well, I suppose it started through the movies that I saw.
Okay.
Where I'm from, there was no TV.
Right.
There actually wasn't any television until 1974.
Oh, wow.
In Brochet. So by that time, I had left to go to high school.
Right.
But in Brochet, there used to be this old church where the priest used to show movies.
Okay.
You know, not the high quality movies.
Sure.
The B movies.
Okay.
Very campy.
Was it like a reel-to-reel
like
sort of
Ben-Hur,
thing?
The House of Wax.
Right. Oh, I see.
She Who Must Be Obeyed. You know, I suppose the old cult movies now.
Oh, okay, right.
But I fell in love with that medium. As a child, you know, in those when the old priest used to show those movies in the old church, I just loved that whole notion of pictures, moving pictures, right?
Right.
So as I grew older, I started discovering Broadway too.
Okay.
You know, I fell in love with Broadway, fascinated by people who could dance, sing, act. Which to me is what I would love to encompass. I can sing with people, but I'm not comfortable singing by myself.
Okay.
Because I don't have a natural singing voice.
I see.
But I can rehearse a song and perform a song.
Okay.
But I wouldn't call myself a natural singer. But I admire people who encompass all the talents that Broadway requires.
Right.
And so, after I left, I finished high school. First of all, high school was the toughest years of my life.
Okay.
Because I loved where I grew up.
Right.
I grew up in Brochet, Manitoba.
Right.
I was actually born on an island in Ranger Lake.
Okay.
My mother gave birth to me in my parents' log cabin.
Oh.
With a Dene midwife.
Oh, okay.
I'm very actually honored to have been born in my parents' log cabin with a Dene midwife, because that's a rare situation now.
Right.
And so I grew up in a very wonderful community. a Cree-speaking community where we had two tribes, the Cree and the Dene.
The Dene, okay.
And including the Métis.
Okay.
And as a child, I was always fascinated by the Dene. When we actually moved across the lake to actually join the community of Brochet, we were on the non-status side, off reserve.
I see.
But every chance I would get, I would literally go to the reserve side and just observe the Dene. I loved the way they looked. I loved their skin color. I loved their bones and their language. Okay. And they also had a lot more of their culture than the Cree did.
I see.
The Cree or the Métis. The Dene still had their full culture, where they had dances. And one of the things that I really loved was their gambling games. Where they would form teams.
Right.
And each team would have their drums, and then they would play these bone games.
Right.
It was all fascinating for me.
Okay.
So that was a good world to be brought up in, actually, in that Cree world. Right. And I really miss that world. The older I get, I really miss it.
Right. And how old were you around then when you were, checking out the Dene and the games they were playing?
I would say maybe it was 7.
7, okay.
7 years old, 8 years old.
And you're I was reading, one of 14 children?
My mother had 14 children. Right. I'm the 9th child.
The 9th child, okay.
I credit that, being raised in a large family. I credit that for being able to get along with all types of personalities. Because in a family of 14, you have all types of personalities.
Yeah,
for example, I have 3 older sisters and 3 younger sisters.
Okay.
All different. Every single one of them are different. And I also know the difference between the older ones and the younger ones.
Right.
So the older ones basically helped to carry the family for the rest of the younger ones.
Okay.
But I'm glad I experienced that. It helps me get along with people.
Right.
But at the same time, too, people are hard to get along with sometimes, So you basically have to be patient and understanding.
Right.
And the whole notion of understanding humanity, it comes in handy.
It comes in handy.
Not
just for acting, but just in daily interactions, right?
So it was through daily life, community life, family life, and then discovering the English world that got me interested in the arts.
Okay.
And also in the Cree and Métis indigenous community, I would say that most people are artistic. Everything that they needed had to be made. I grew up in an era where people used dog teams to travel in the wintertime.
Okay, right.
And canoe in the summertime.
Right.
And everything that was needed had to be made.
Okay.
And had to be made well.
Sure, right.
So I consider my family naturally artistic. Because they had to create and make things and make them well.
Right.
Because especially in the wintertime, things have to be made well. Moccasins have to be made well. Clothing, jackets, mitts, hats had to be made well.
Right.
Because the temperatures up
the
north
elements,
and the winters are long and harsh. So it's an accumulation of community, family, and the discovery of the outside world that I got interested in the arts.
Okay.
And I think it may have to do with the life that I grew up in. You had to make things.
Right.
It led to my creative interest, curiosity.
Right.
And then through movies and through books, discovered the world. And of course, I became fascinated by city life because it was vastly different than growing up in the bush. I'm very thankful I grew up in the bush.
Right.
But I always wondered when those bush planes came from Lynn Lake.
Yeah.
Where you were born?
Yeah.
I always wondered, what's over there? What's over the trees?
In Lynn Lake?
Yeah.
So Lynn Lake's not the big metropolis.
When I first discovered Lynn Lake, it was so huge to me. Walking down Main Street, just a few buildings, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was, oh my God, I'm in the city.
But you came to Toronto early. Like you were around 18, I believe, from what I was reading.
I grew up with wonderful parents.
Okay.
My mother especially was always was curious.
Right.
Like I had two parents. Both my parents were vastly different from each other. My dad basically just stayed away from the world, preferred his own company, and just stayed away from the earth, from the world. My mother was the opposite. My mother was curious about the world, wanted to know everything and anything. And so I think I have both of my parents. My mom's curiosity and love of things that are new and curious. And my dad, just every now and then, just, I do not want to be around people. And that's my dad.
Sure. Yeah. I like that more often than not, I think, right? Okay.
But I'm really missing my first world that I grew up in as the older I get. Both my parents are gone now. Mm-hmm. I've lost half my family. And the rest that are around are... I wish I could establish a stronger relationship with the rest, but I don't.
Right.
And I have to say that there's a war of churches that happened in my family.
I see, okay.
You know, because the dominant religion in Brochet was Roman Catholicism. You know, and everybody had to obey the priests. And when I was growing up and also hearing stories from my parents, they had absolute control over Native people. And then, because I picked up the English language fast and I started reading, and I was asked to, you know, in church to read the first reading, second reading, and all this, and which I enjoyed doing. So they had an idea for me, the priests and the nuns. They were grooming me to be a brother. You would make a good brother and all this, and to be a priest. And back then, to be a priest was the position, the highest position to achieve.
I see.
Back then,
right.
But as I was helping out in the church, being an altar boy and helping out the priest backstage after the church services, I would hear the way they would talk about the people I loved, my parents, my grandparents, my aunties and uncles, my relatives, and denigrating them, and basically being absolutely disrespectful and denigrating them to children and superstitious and all that. So I was groomed and expected to become a priest. But when I discovered the real story of humanity, how the contrast of the white world and my world, the Cree world, and I made a decision that I did not want to be like them. I didn't want to have anything to do with them, even though they ruled and had absolute power over my people. Something in me did not want to go there. And so every parent used to had to make sure their children went to school and go through confessions, all the stages. And when I was about 13, when I decided that I no longer wanted to help out the priest, help out the church. And I remember talking to my mother saying, I don't want to do that anymore. And she asked me, Danige, why? That was my mother's favorite word. And because instead of reacting to someone going against your wishes, she would always say, why? Danige. And then I explained, because of the way they talk about you, they talk about grandparents and aunties and uncles, and I don't want to be that way. I don't want to help them out anymore. Okay, she'd say, right? And then, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. And so she left me alone. Meanwhile, like I come from a family of 14. She would tell all the others, brothers and sisters, you go to confession, you go to church, and she would leave me alone. She allowed me to become my own person. So I'm really thankful that I had a parent who understood what I was going through in this world that I was supposed to fit in. And she was smart enough to understand and allow me to become my own person.
That's awesome.
And so and that's when I just started turning my back on the church and going as far away and discovering my own culture. And and I was fascinated by the Dene culture. In fact, I'm still to this day fascinated by indigenous culture. And that's one of the reasons why I still carry my language. It hasn't left me, and I'm so thankful. Even though I rarely have anybody to speak with here in the city, my language is still hasn't left me. It's still with me.
Right.
I just finished. I was asked to translate the Buffy St. Marie song.
Oh, which one?
We Are Circling.
Oh, okay. You know, well, I should admit, I'm actually. Well, I'll talk about off camera, but there's that interesting project. I'll talk about it.
When one of the reasons why I brought that up is because it's a recent project that I just finished.
Okay.
And it was kind of tricky, especially some words that involved circling, spinning, spiraling.
That's right.
That was the most difficulty that I had, is to differentiate, because they're quite similar.
Right.
You know, but by finishing it, it reinforced my belief that my language hasn't left me. My language is still helping me.
Right.
You know, and I'm really thankful that that I can still speak Cree.
Oh, wow.
And when things get to me, I switch from English to Cree.
I see.
And just to understand and to make things more clear for me, you know. So that's where I switch.
Right. Because if you speak more than one language, people, I notice, I'm reading different articles, how they may have different perspectives of the world as well, based on the language that they're speaking.
I really encourage people to speak more than one language, and it does really help. And I don't like hearing when people say speak English.
Right.
You know, to me, it means be dumb.
Right.
Be dumber.
Right.
You know, because if you speak another language, it actually helps you.
Oh, it does.
Not only be a better human being, it just betters you, as you know.
Well, it helps with your brain, with different connections it's making, and even just to analyze a problem from different angles that you may not have thought of otherwise.
Yeah. So it took a while to understand and learn English, and I think I'm okay with it now.
Yeah, I think you've mastered it now. So. So when you came to Toronto many years ago, was it a culture shock? I mean, if Lynn Lake was kind of the big city, and then when you come to like a city of millions of people, how did you kind of?
So I grew up in a loving community, helpful community, where we all got along. I got along with my cousins, especially in my generation. And then when we went to high school, we stuck together, and my cousins really helped in making my transition as a person who was different, gay, two-spirited. They helped with my transition. They were my support.
Right.
But high school was really tough, and they were the toughest years of my life, because I just was different, and I was in a different world, and I was still in the process of learning English. But I was also targeted. I became a target from the town boys. The white boys were after me.
Right.
And I had several incidents where they came near to hurting me. And then I was lucky enough to have friends, a lot of friends who happened to be girls, come in, surround me, and pushing them away, saying, "You leave them alone." Okay. And I started getting a lot of those incidents more when I turned 16 and 17.
Right.
And I felt I had to change schools, so I did. So I went from Cranberry Portage for 3 years, from grade 9 to grade 11. And then grade 12 was even more tougher, especially the first half year. I went to Swan River. And it was, I regretted going there. But there's a story behind that I'm not going to get into right now. But Swan River was tough, and I basically had to argue with my counselor to let me go to a different school to transfer out. And they finally allowed, when I told them why, they let me transfer schools. And I went to Brandon, Manitoba.
Oh, right, okay.
The Crocus Plains Regional Secondary School, where I ended up graduating. But I was 2 credits short.
Oh, okay.
When it came down to graduating.
Right.
Because I failed English and I failed science.
Oh, okay.
So when the guidance counselor in Brandon let me know that I was about to graduate, but I was 2 credits short. But you can speak your language, he said. Well, he was a native guidance counselor.
Right.
So I said, yes, I still speak it. I even think in Cree. And so he suggested something to make an appointment with a professor at Brandon University, the Cree professor.
Okay.
So I went to the appointment, and then when I got introduced to the professor, I just spoke Cree. And then Nuitamuao, Tansagi the previous year, I just started telling him about my school years, and especially that last year, and the difficulty I had in trying to fit in Swan River and all that. I talked for about 20 minutes, just Cree. And then at the end, the professor said, that's good. And then he gave me 3 credits.
Oh, wow.
Which allowed me to graduate.
Oh, that's great.
So my language gave me my diploma.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I was very lucky that I was able to graduate that year, because I don't know whether I could have handled an extra year.
Yeah.
So I managed to graduate at the right time, 18 years old.
Okay.
But I was filled with everything that life was throwing at me, and I was trying to make sense with it, and I was feeling mixed up, but I also knew my true self, and I wanted to express my true self that I wasn't able to.
Right.
So I was filled with anger, angst, all the negative stuff, hating yourself and all this, because I was getting, especially in high school, a lot of hate. And when when people give you energy, you tend to absorb it and swallow it, right? Mm-hmm. And so after I finished high school, I didn't want to stay. I didn't want to stay up north, especially since my life was in danger.
No, of course.
Quite frequently.
Right, yeah.
So I decided that I wanted to go to New York.
Okay.
Because I fell in love with New York as I was reading everything about New York. So when I decided, I was living with a sister in Tomson, Manitoba. And in November, there was a party. My sister was a born-again Christian. And I was very unhappy about the situation, and I was also very confused. But I also knew I reached a point in my life that I didn't want to live there anymore. I didn't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. And after a house party, I wasn't drinking then, I was 17. No, I had just turned 18. I was still 18, but I wasn't drinking. So there was this house party that happened, and I was staying with my sister, and I decided I was going to leave. In the morning when I got up, everybody was sort of passed out and stuff, and there was a storm outside, a literal winter storm.
Oh, right, November. This was November, right?
I just packed, just put on my clothes, the warm clothes as much as possible, and I packed a little knapsack, and I went out into the storm, and I hitchhiked out of there in Tomson, Manitoba.
Oh, wow.
Took me 3 rides to finally make it to Winnipeg. But that's how I left.
Okay.
And that's how desperate I was to leave.
Right.
Wanting to leave, and that's how unhappy I was.
Right.
And as it turns out, it was the best thing I've ever done. As soon as I hit the city, not necessarily Winnipeg. Winnipeg is always a tough city for me. But after staying a few months in Winnipeg, I decided to go to Toronto.
Okay.
Because I came across a picture of my mother's baby brother, who was a dancer, René Highway.
Yes, of course, yeah.
In high school, I saw a picture of him in Maclean's magazine, in the People's section.
Yes.
There was a picture of, they're all in superhero outfits, and Uncle René was in the middle in a Batman outfit. So I always remember Toronto Dance Theatre. And so when I took the bus from Winnipeg to Toronto, I arrived in Toronto, went to the phone book, looked up Toronto Dance Theatre, called it, and says, Uncle René there. He came on the phone, and he was surprised to hear from me, and I told him, you don't know me, but I'm related to you, and I just arrived in Toronto. And he was surprised. I can't come see you right now. I'm rehearsing, but come over. I went over, and I watched my uncle dance all day.
Oh, wow.
So and then from then on, my life changed. My life became good again. And I was able also able to start expressing myself. If I didn't like something, then I would address it and explain why I didn't like something.
Right.
Because it was hurting me, because it was hurting other people, and it just wasn't a good thing to absorb. Right. And there were a lot of stuff inside that I had to get rid of, and I started getting rid of it by expressing myself. And when I eventually made it to New York City, I credit New York City for allowing me to stand up for myself, to steel my spine, and to start talking back in my defense.
Right.
And because in New York City, you have to adapt and adapt fast.
Right.
And I was always a quick learner.
Of course.
And so so that's when I started. If people were ready to dismiss me, then I started I grounded myself and challenged them, saying, "Why are you doing that to me?" And one example of that is after I came back from New York, moved back here in Toronto. I was making my living as I learned how to type in high school. I was one of two boys who took home ec.
Was it one of those typewriters with no letters on the keys?
No, there were letters on the keys.
Okay.
Yeah.
When they taught us, they didn't put any letters on the keys, and you had to learn where you had to memorize.
No, they were, and it was something that I took to real fast.
What was your typing speed, just out of curiosity?
Almost 90 words per minute. It was quick.
It was
very
quick. Yeah.
I might have practiced now, but I can still type fast. But I survived in New York through office work, typing, filing, easy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved back here in the city, I went to the employment center and looked up the jobs that are available, and I came across one for the agency, and they wanted a clerk, typist, receptionist. And so I auditioned for it. I took the information out and went to the white counselor, the counselor who happened to be white, a white woman. And so I said, I'd like to audition. I'd like to apply for this job. It's a clerk, typist, receptionist for the agency. And as soon as she saw it, she goes, they're going to expect you to wear a business suit and cut your hair. And so I said, but I'm well qualified. I meet all the qualifications. Yes, but it clearly states that this is an agency. They will expect you to wear a business suit and cut your hair. And then that was it. And this went back and forth.
Okay.
And then New York started kicking in my experiences to challenge people. So I knew that this was wrong, and she was ready to dismiss me. And so I said, so you're not even going to call them? You're just going to let it go and not call them to see if it'd be okay to send a guy? All right, if that's what you want, I'll give him a call. She dialed the number, and then she said, yes, I have a gentleman here with long hair, and he'd like to apply for your, she was, feeding the listener with her own perceptions of me. And so as she was explaining, he's got long hair and he wants to apply for this job. And then she went quiet, and she went, oh, okay, I'll send him over. And as she hung up, she looked at me with a surprised look and said, it's a rock and roll agency.
Wow.
And I ended up getting the job.
Wow, right.
And it was the best job ever. And I had Mr. Blue was my boss in my new job, and he was awesome. He was wonderful to me, and he would give me tickets too to all the concerts in the city. I got to see all the bands and also go to the nightclubs. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful job, and that was my last job. Okay. Because during in one of my breaks, I came across Gary Farmer.
Right, Gary. Yes.
And he told me, I'm recruiting for Native Theatre School. You should audition. You'll do well. You'll do well. I remember him. Gary said, and I figured, I do like the arts. I mean, I love Broadway, singing, acting, and all this, and I should try. So I auditioned and I got in.
You got it? Okay.
And it was a wonderful experience. It was everything that I knew. It satisfied me in so many ways, in so many levels, and I totally fell in love with it.
Okay.
And so as part of our summer school experience, we put a play together at the end that we toured to continue our experiences. And then we played at Earl Bales Park in northern Toronto.
Okay.
In a park in North Toronto. And Monique Mojica introduced herself after the performance and said, I'm the artistic director of Native Earth Performing Arts Incorporated, and I'd like you to join us. And so she pulled me out of Native Theatre School to join a professional theatre company of Native Earth. And from our first production, in one of the shows, a white woman introduced herself to me and said, I'm an agent, and I'd like to represent you.
Oh, great.
And that's how I got my agent, who happened
awesome.
to be the best agent in the city.
Awesome. Okay, great.
And that's how I began my professional career.
And what was the name of the production that you were in, the first production?
With Native Earth?
Yeah.
I believe it was Double Take a Second Look.
Okay.
And it was with Monique's aunties.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm sorry. Monique's auntie was Muriel.
Right. Okay.
And Monique's mother, Gloria, was part of the troupe.
Okay.
So I got to meet the Spider Women Theatre.
Oh, awesome.
And of course, with their experiences and their stories that they had during their career was exciting for me.
Right.
And it was a wonderful troupe. And that was back in the day when Native people used to really help each other.
Sure.
Especially in the arts.
Yes.
Before it became competitive.
Right.
It was a wonderful time to actually be introduced, and everybody was working together. Right. And the person that I credit for bringing me in, of course, is Monique Mojica. But one of the things that she also did was allow me to express myself, because she knew when I was having trouble, and then if I didn't get things, and she would say, "Please explain, please explain." And so she allowed me to start talking and explain and trying to make sense of things, verbally. Mm-hmm. And I became more comfortable with it. But it was a great experience working with Spider Women and working with Monique and Native Earth.
Right.
And it basically began my career, my professional career.
And then you never looked back.
That was in 1983.
1983, wow.
So that's 38 years ago.
Holy, has it been that long?
Yeah. But it took about 10 years, 6 to 8 years doing theater work before snagging any TV or film roles.
Right.
So now, that was 38 years ago, and I eventually joined the ACTRA Union and the Equity Union.
Right.
ACTRA, of course, is for TV, film, radio. Right. And so I've been in the ACTRA Union 30 years now. Okay. And in the Equity Union for theater, 31 years.
31 years.
And I'm very, very proud of it. And I've added to my career every year, added to my resume every year. And I just, part of it is, I was 23 years old, and I lived through many worlds, so many experiences, and the whole notion of understanding humanity, I had my bag full by the age of 23.
Right.
And so I was able to draw from this bag full, using my experiences, understanding humanity, and why people behave the way they do.
So that sort of became, those experiences became your toolbox or your toolkit in your roles that you portray.
And having lived through many worlds and all those experiences helped by me putting all those experiences into the work.
Right.
It just made it easier that way. Right. And that's the other thing that I would like to encourage any actor who wants to get into acting is build yourself, build your experiences, even try things even if you don't want to do them. If your instinct is, I don't like to do it, I don't want to do it, do it. Right. Take that as a clue to do it. If you don't want to do something, that gives you the best excuse to actually discover, even if it's to reinforce why you don't like it. It's good to discover that too. So it helps to take chances, but also to build yourself. And part of it is to be comfortable in your own skin. And it took a while.
Right.
Took a while to stop being shy.
Right.
Don't look at me.
It's like the camera's on.
But now I'm comfortable because I'm
Yes.
comfortable in my own skin.
That's right. Well, we have 3 cameras here. They're all pointing
I'm
at you.
good. Point away.
So with the new generation, I guess, of actors coming onto the scene, are they like? Do you find that they're missing some of these experiences, or even like you said, you had a very supportive mother that kind of helped you on your path? What I've noticed now today, I mean, I'm not in the acting world, but just the other arts and culture sectors, there's a whole generation of people that are sort of lacking experiences. They don't want to take chances, and maybe they had helicopter parents around them their entire lives. So, do you find that affecting now the craft, or?
It could be positive, it could be negative.
Sure.
But no matter what life you have, that's experience.
Right.
Even if it's negative, that's still
right.
a good experience to translate into your work. And having any type of relationship with any human helps,
right.
builds your character, and also builds your experience to discover humanity further.
Right.
But everything helps. So even if you had the toughest upbringing, it's not just having a university background that helps. It's all your human experiences that culminates as a whole that helps.
Right. So are there any future projects that you want to work on? Is there like a dream project? Say, for example, someone gave you, $10 million other than buy a nice house somewhere. Would you
absolutely
make a film, or do you have a story you're, itching to tell? Or because your life story would make an interesting film if anyone's watching.
I've started my memoir, I guess.
Okay.
About growing up, basically growing up, and what inspired me, what shaped me, also and just trying to understand my journey in fitting in this world. Not that I ever fully fit in, but I have gumption enough to say I'm not leaving. I'm staying here, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Because I can contribute as much as you can. Anyone can.
Right.
So it helps to steal your resolve, and to say no to things that you don't want to do, to say no to things that you're being forced to do.
Right.
But in the acting experience, in the human experience, it's still valuable, but there are still limits that you shouldn't, I don't want to cross.
Right.
Especially, for example, I've cut my hair for roles.
Okay.
I went from long to a brush cut.
Okay.
But I did it for a role because it was such a wonderful character, a wonderful role, that it was worth it.
Okay. And which role was that?
My boss was Jeff Daniels one time.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Daniels is the co-founder, the founder of the Purple Rose Theater Company.
Okay.
Which was located in Chelsea, Michigan, just outside south of Detroit, in the suburb. And I got hired by that company, and he ended up being my boss. And it was a wonderful experience having Jeff Daniels as my boss. They set me up in a nice apartment, and it was a Lanford Wilson play called, oh my God, Rain Dance. It was called Rain Dance. And Lanford Wilson did Burn This. It was an award-winning, I believe, Pulitzer-winning play.
Okay,
in Broadway. Yeah. In Broadway, so he was commissioned to do a play, and that was the play. It was about the world's first atomic bomb.
Okay.
And the 2 scientists and a wife, and I played the security personnel in this scenario. So that was wonderful, and Jeff Daniels as well made my life comfortable because I had to work through Christmas, right through November, right to March.
Okay.
Right to March, I should say, from Christmas to March. And he is a member of the Academy. So he was sent all the movies and pictures, shows.
Or like the screeners
that
and
all
stuff?
the members receive for for nominations
for voting purposes
for voting purposes for the Academy Awards,
Yes.
for best film,
That's
best
right,
actor, and all that.
That's right.
He lent me all these films, all the best films that were in nominations, and so he made my life easier. And so I got to see all these wonderful films of that year.
Okay. What were some of them? Any highlights?
Well, that was the year that Before Night Falls, a Cuban gay playwright, his life story and how he ended up in New York and how he ended up dying of AIDS, but his trip to try to leave Cuba, and they made a movie about him. So he was nominated, and the guy who played him was just wonderful. His name escapes me right now, but wonderful acting. And then same as Gladiator, Russell Crowe.
Oh yeah, Gladiator.
That was the same year.
Oh, that was the year.
That was the same year.
Wow.
Romeo, Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and Requiem for Love as well.
Okay.
So, and I would talk to my fellow actors about this movie and this acting role, and this actress, this actor, this and I guess Jeff Daniels heard it. And at the very end, when my contract ended, and I went up to him and said, "It was an honor working with you, Jeff Daniels, and thank you for the movies." And then he told me, "By the way, I voted for all your favorites."
Oh, wow.
So I influenced Oscar voting that year.
Oh, great.
So, wonderful experiences that
absolutely
made it better for me.
Right.
Because it was tough being Native in that situation. But I love the artistic world of it, the artistic part of it. That what saved me. And of course the movies, which I totally loved, and having a boss like Jeff Daniels.
Yes.
So it just made my isolation away from what I was used to here in Toronto more homier and better.
Great.
For me. So
So
it was a good experience.
Great.
And I was glad to actually get to know Jeff Daniels that way.
Oh,
he's
awesome.
He's a wonderful human and a
too,
fantastic actor.
Oh, fantastic.
And I just love seeing him in anything he does.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
exactly.
he's just incredible.
So is there anything you would change about being an actor, or anything you don't like maybe 4 a.m., wake up calls to go on the set, or
is there anything
standing in the same spot for, hours on end? Or
I actually love being on set.
Okay.
So it's always great to be on set. And so anything about it, it can be demanding. I think the most toughest part is when they want you to be ready now.
Right.
When you don't feel ready,
sure.
you could use an extra day or maybe an extra hour.
Right.
But we have to be ready now. So that was tough and challenging, but it's great.
Okay.
So if there's anything would change, is just me to be better, to be a better actor, and to be less insecure, and to be more confident. Which is how I felt, because I was still getting to know the craft and all, and also being expected to. It's always tricky for me because I'm openly gay. Since I've left high school from 18 on, I was angry enough to just make my resolve be known that I'm gay, openly gay, and let everybody know. So during my whole career, I've been openly gay, right? So if there was anything I'd like to change, I wouldn't mind it being offered more gay roles rather than straight roles. So because it's always tricky,
right?
To try and be someone that you're not.
That you're not, right?
And there's just something about me that I'm not comfortable playing straight,
right?
Because part of it is the obvious fact that I'm not straight.
Is that because there's a lack of roles being written?
Yes, there's a lack for me.
Right.
There's a few more, and I just wish. I mean, I had this one actress producer who I shared the same agent with. She basically started producing and doing stuff. And then one time she, out of nowhere, said, "I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to use you in any way, but there was just nothing that fit."
Right.
She would say, right? But to me, if you're a creator, if you're a producer, if you're a writer, you can make things work.
Sure.
You know, so I didn't quite understand when it said, "Oh, we just couldn't find anything for you." I said, "No, that's wrong." The reason why I remember it is because it was a wrong thing to say. Because if you're in the creative field, you can create and adapt. There's always adapting, changing this, changing that. That always happens, right?
Right.
And so for me, if people don't recognize me as an actor or think that my being gay is disqualifies me from any other work, to me it's wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
And in this situation now, where we have more acceptance to Indigenous people and gay people and transgendered people, trans fluid people, love that. So people are now comfortable with different types of people out there.
Yes.
Right. So I didn't have that comfort going in. So if that were to change anything, I wish the comfort that we have of people who are different now and the acceptance that we have now, I wish I had that in the start of my career.
Right.
Because that affected especially those roles that I had to play as straight.
Right.
You know, and I always felt I'm being phony.
Yeah, no, for sure.
In those instances.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's changing now, you see, with more roles.
There is more acceptance now of people who are different.
Right, of course, yeah.
But, and so, in recent years, I've been offered roles by two Indigenous Native women who happen to be filmmakers. And I love them. Shelley Nero has offered me a two-spirited role in her short film. And then in her feature film, The Incredible 25th Year of Mitzi Bearclaw, she had me play a father. And my wife was Gail Maurice.
Oh, Gail, yes.
Who's also living an open lifestyle.
Yes, that's right, yes.
And then in the film, we had two children. And in real life, they happen to be two-spirited as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so in actual fact, the family in the Shelley Nero film, in real life, are all two-spirited.
Okay.
So to me, it's like, see, it can work.
Right.
And I was awarded the Best Supporting Actor at the Winnipeg Aboriginal Film Festival, so that was a nice treat.
That is
for
awesome.
The role.
Yes, yeah.
For the role. And I played 3 roles.
Right. And when was that? How long ago was that? That was
last New Year's.
Last New Year's, okay.
Because they have a thing in Winnipeg now on New Year's Eve. They have the Winnipeg Aboriginal Film Festival as a major event.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
And they televise it. They
okay.
televise it and stuff, and then they give awards as well. And so New Year's is when I received this past New Year's, when I received my Best Supporting role for that. Now, so Shelley just offered them to me.
Right.
You know, so she, and it's wonderful to have a producer, director, filmmaker actually offering you roles without having to audition because they trust you, right?
Right.
And I'm glad that that winning an award confirms that.
Awards are nice to win. I've never won one myself, but I've been nominated.
The other Native filmmaker, female, is Darlene Napons.
Yes, Darlene, yes.
Falls Around Her, starring
we just
Tantu
watched
Cardinal.
that film a couple weeks ago,
She offered me that role. And she just basically, she's the type of director that just allows you to interpret it anyway. She just follows you and stuff. Instead of demanding, okay, I want you to play it this way, she doesn't do that.
Right.
It's tough when people do that, when they have a preconceived idea rather than allowing the actor to to form their own character, right?
That's right.
So Darlene is another one that a rare exception that's just offers me a role. She offered me another one in her latest film,
right?
Which I got to do
briefly, at Ontario Place a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I got to do it in Sudbury, where she filmed her latest film based on a short story she wrote called Stellar.
Stellar, right?
So that's a movie coming, and she's taken a giant step forward, taken a big chance.
Sort of
it's
cosmic element to this.
Yes.
To this, okay.
And it's really sexy too.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about it? It's not yet.
Well, it's based on a short story.
Okay.
Called Stellar. That she wrote, and it all takes place in this one area.
Okay.
And life, the whole world evolves around this set, and then people come in and out, and as this life around this set is getting more serious and serious, right? And the two main characters are native man and native woman, strangers upon meeting. Mm-hmm. And then they have this almost sexy dance, the way they interact with one another. It's really sexy, and it's really disturbing and exciting and creative.
Well, that sounds awesome.
So that I'm really looking forward to that.
When's that going to be completed?
I don't know. We filmed in May. And I was thinking about was wondering if it was going to take place at the Toronto Film Festival. Oh, but that's coming up real fast.
Real soon.
And if you're filming in May, June, July, August, 3 months editing, I'm not sure if that's enough.
No. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well,
keep my fingers crossed. But there's other film festivals, and there's also the release. I believe it'll do well because she got a lot of attention for Falls Around Her.
Yes, that was a great
film. Town too.
Yeah.
And with this new one, even more so. She's taken a huge leap forward.
That's awesome. So that's fantastic to see.
That's very exciting.
That's great.
Yeah, a new Indigenous film coming.
Oh, that's awesome. We can't wait. I saw it mentioned earlier on IMDb, I think, and I became very interested. And I saw you were in the credits, and you had mentioned it a couple weeks ago at Ontario Place. So we're slowly coming to the end of the show. Any last advice or words for wannabe, Indigenous actors that may be growing up in a community where they feel like they can't escape from? Any sort of advice or words of encouragement or?
Follow your heart, follow your instincts, and follow whatever it is that makes you fall in love with anything, whether it's reading, whether it's books, whether it's film, whether it's the stage, plays, or whether it's just a person or life in general. But find and follow what you love. And because I was always interested in the arts and reading, discovering English, the English world, reading, I fell in love with books. And through books, I fell in love with Broadway, acting, dance, singing. And so most people have to get comfortable within their own bodies and not, most people I find hold themselves back because they're shy, they're not comfortable in even standing up in front of people, but follow what you love. Understand if you're shy, but you understand that there's something that you've discovered that you love, that you want to do, follow it. Try to overcome your shyness. And for me, one of the reasons how I overcome my shyness was I was quite insecure because I felt like I never fit anywhere. But when I fell in love with theater, when I was expected to go in front of people, I had a talk with myself saying that it's what I love to do. And so it means I have to be in front of people, to go in front of people, and I have to be comfortable. I have to be comfortable. And living in a city like Toronto helped me be comfortable amongst people, to be among
tons
people,
of people,
right?
even just walking on the sidewalk.
So I would say just follow your instinct, follow your craft, and always build yourself to better yourself.
Awesome.
And for the creators out there, I have 38 years experience, and I'm still willing to work, willing to do anything, and adapt something for me. Use me, please. I've been told, well, create your own projects. That's besides the point. Yes, I can create my own projects. But we live in a world now that is supposed to be more accepting and inclusive.
Right.
And with that context, please let me fit in some of your ideas because I can still contribute. And I'm more comfortable myself, and I'm also The other thing that I'm following is writing. I'm writing a lot more. Not only my plays,
Right.
but my life story.
Right, your memoirs you mentioned, right.
But otherwise, I'll just continue following what I do. And I've been offered some amazing work. The pandemic has canceled out some of the projects, film projects, like 3. There's 3 gay filmmakers that have offered me work.
Oh, okay.
And so I hope that those projects do come true.
Right.
Because it will be they're all wonderful.
Are they just been postponed because of COVID? Are
Because
they still,
of COVID,
okay,
yeah.
Right.
Because they deal with a world, pre-mask world.
I see. Okay, right.
You know, so they're hoping that we're able to just walk around without masks and interact with other people without masks.
Right.
Because right now they can't go through with the projects that they had planned.
I see. Okay.
Because they were pre-COVID. No
Right.
masks.
That's right.
So, and one especially is very adamant. They want to do it without masks.
Okay.
Like, for example, 2 filmmakers, 2 of the gay filmmakers want to film during Gay Pride, but there's no Gay Pride in the last 2 years, right?
That's right. Correct.
So they're
That's right,
hoping,
yeah. Right.
because part of their story involved Gay Pride, celebration of Gay Pride and all that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think things will slowly start returning back to normal. Once the vaccination rates go up and we have things under control. I think hopefully in the near future.
Yeah. There's also some interesting other projects that have been offered. And one is a TV series, a lead, and it's a wonderful concept. And I can't say any more than that because the story is being pitched.
Okay.
But the creator has notified me that she wants me to play the lead, and it's fantastic.
Oh, wow. And that's for
perfect
series.
for me.
Okay.
My age,
yes.
who I am, everything.
That sounds awesome.
And I can add my own magic to it.
Well, that's awesome. Do you know when that's going to transpire? Hopefully soon.
I'm actually waiting every day to get that phone call to say it's on. The project is on, but we'll see.
Well, you'll have to come back on the show when that happens, and we'll want to hear all about it.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Billy. I always love talking to you. You always have interesting stories. And yes, please use him in your work. He's available. They know how to contact you, people, I'll assume, through your agent?
My agent is Karen Williams Possible.
Okay.
Of The Characters.
All right.
Her email is Karen WP@thecharacters.com.
Okay, we'll post that in the link once we post
Hire me,
the show.
Please.
Well, thank you again so much, and we'll turn on the air conditioning. It's getting hot in here again because we had to turn it off because the sound. Thanks again, and stay tuned. We'll have more guests coming on later this week as well. Thank you.
Thank you.